Okay, then hello to our global economics course, and what we will do today is some overview with the example country Germany. What is a country analysis in an economic way about? Which parameter should I look? And I will also do it that I with you together directly um, download the data, so that for Germany we go to the statistics office, we go to the Bundesbank, and similar things you can do then for your country, especially at the statistics office of your country and also at the central bank of your country. And so I think you will find the relevant data. Which you should analyze. And also this you will see later on when I'm talking about the time series analysis, aggregated data, at least yearly data, you find also at the large institution side like IMF, World Bank, and so on. But if you have problems there, you always can ask me where is some relevant source where I can look at. Okay. So this are then more or less the main indicators, and also some indicators else we want to analyze today. But I want to start with another topic as a revision from the macro course. Well, what is a country analysis about? From an aggregated point of view, you should more or less judge the economic performance of your country in the long run, more or less. I ask you to start from the financial crisis, so for the last 15 years. And of course, during this time, there has happened many things. If you have a European country, you have not only the financial crisis, you have also the European debt crisis. We all suffered from Corona and in the actual situation from the Ukraine war, and also from the changes, especially like China right now acts during time. So I think somebody have chosen Japan. So in the trade pattern of Japan, you will definitely see things which depend on the economic policy in China. Or if you take Turkey now with their relations to Russia and to the bit harder relations to Europe, there you will of course also find impacts. Switzerland, I think we had also, there was what specific we can say about Switzerland. Well, Switzerland is something like the bank for the world. So in volatile times, it is not surprisingly that much money flows into Switzerland. What this means for this country, which we had else. Australia is, I think, also really interesting, because Australia is situating in the more or less Southeast Asian part below, and a very from the area large country. So they have many resources, raw materials, which definitely China wants to have. And so this is also really interesting. On the other hand, there was this creation of some new military group, one can say, because all these countries and also Australia, they fear what is China doing in the future in this area. Canada, in a similar way, a large country with resources, with especially these special oil resources, which you can get out of the ground, and this is profitable if the oil price is high. So this any country left what we had? I think I talked about it. Yeah, the UK, of course, the aftermath of the Brexit is definitely very interesting in relation to the European Union. Well, and all this means that you have no straight development of this country if you look at the totally aggregated view on economic growth, but you will see some fluctuation around the longer trend. And yeah, somehow your task is then to describe this business cycle, or can you even see, because of all the changes which happened during the last 15 years, is there really a business cycle? So this you should analyze. If you can maybe identify periods of expansion, maybe a boom, a peak. Are the countries in the actual situation? How do they deal with them? Maybe I think I know it for Australia that they right now perform quite well because of the demand for raw materials. So maybe they are not in a recession. Another country, if we have a look on the UK, they are in a quite hard situation right now. So maybe you can also identify these different periods we in general define in the business cycle. And then what is in the long run really interesting? Yeah, what will be the long trend? Where is the country going? And this could be something like the end of your term paper that you make some outlook. What is your opinion? Where goes the path of your country you are analyzing? And for this, you have to have some clue what is the long-term trend of this country. Well, and this long-term trend, remember your macro course, this we are not identifying only with just averaging. This we will do as an example in a minute, but yeah, from a more theoretical perspective, we call this the potential output. So there is some potential production level of the country, and around this potential production level, our country is fluctuating because of yeah, special events during time. And yeah, in short, we could say this production level represents the possibility. What is the possibility production level at full capacity? So, and this also means that we, of course, can have an overshoot if you make many overtime in your labor market, for example. Then, of course, this does not then mean full capacity that everybody works 50 hours per week, but full capacity makes so the general working time. And also machines you can run at least for some time at 100%, 120% level or so, but not in the long run. But well, this production level we definitely can see. And if we take a country as a whole, then we also have to admit that we do not get all the data that we can definitely say the possible production level is this number. And for this, we actually have to say that, of course, this concept is a theoretical concept. And if you look at different institutions and they try to estimate the potential output for a country or for your country, then you will, of course, find different numbers for the potential output. But let's take one prominent institutions which define these potential output then from the International Monetary Fund. Potential output is the maximum amount of goods and services an economy can turn out when it is most efficient. So there's also this theoretical concept. I don't know, have you talked maybe in your micro course about, where is it here? The production possibility frontier. Maybe if when you were talking about the dividing your labor source. So in general, we say if we have two goods, A and B, and we have limited inputs, K bar, L bar, and then we say, well, we can take our capital, our full capital and our full labor force only in producing good B, then this would be maybe this level here. This amount would be then B of K bar and L bar. And if we would, not what we are really doing, but if we put all our resources only in producing A, then this would be maybe this level here. And then we can say we can also spend a part of the capital in A and a part of the capital in B, and also for the labor force. And then we come to something like this. So all these points on this curve, then possible production points. And then this curve is called production possibility frontier, or also, or we call this transformation curve. Why do we call this transformation curve? Well, if you go from this point to this point here, then this means I'm shifting the input from the sector A to the sector B. Some capital goes to sector B and some labor will go to sector B in order to come to this point. And so I'm then transformating by shifting the input factors the good A into the good B, and therefore I call this curve also transformation curve. And what is also possible, of course, we also can produce any production point inside, so below this curve. And then, and this is why I'm talking about this, which is most efficient, then we say that an economy is producing efficient when we choose as a production point some point at this production possibility frontier, because then we are not wasting any input factor. Really didn't have seen such a curve. Maybe, well, it is more or less the same concept if here maybe you have taken X and Y, and if you have taken the indifference curve at your utility function. Yep. Possibility frontier? No? No? How did you call it? Oh, well, then you have to be careful because maybe then you think of then capital and L and then more like the isoquants you had here. This would be the indifference curve. So these are then isoquants. These are all points, all combination of capital and labor, which produce the same amount of some good A or B, which is behind this. Yeah, but if you don't have done it, anyhow, I think it is good to have heard this because this is one of the main concepts in the production theory. Or if you somebody of you goes on later in a master study, and if you make then their general equilibrium where you are in parallel looking at production side and at the demand side simultaneously, because this then, if we just step to microeconomics, then we could say, well, these are the possibilities you have, you can produce. And in microeconomics, here you had also your budget line, and then you said everything below your budget line you can consume, and then you are moving out your indifference curve as far as possible, and this will be then your optimum. Well, this would be then somehow the possible supply in your economy, and then you can say, well, there steps in the demand for the two goods A and B. Well, and the demand is deduced from our preferences, so of course we can put in here our indifference curve. Well, and then we are shifting also. The transformation curve is the possibilities. The indifference curve means our demand. The more left, the more upper right, sorry, the indifference curve is, the better we are off, and therefore we try to find the point, the far outsidest point given the transformation curve, and this is representing production side, this is representing our demand side, and this would be then our general equilibrium. Not more, and this is all behind this. This is in the end of the economic theory lecture, but we are not in this today. Sorry. But possibility frontier. Frontier, yeah. Okay, and well, then the ECB is defining potential output and says, well, the potential output depends on if I'm really an efficient producer. So this was because I made this small step to microeconomics and economic theory. Well, and in this point at full capacity, and this we then of course call the production capacity of the economy. And then, well, as I already mentioned, here also the ECB stepped in and said, well, we have to keep in mind that this production possibility is not directly observed, but we can deduce it from existing data and using econometric models. And yeah, in a very simple way, we also want to try to do this. And of course, every time you're doing statistics, you have to be aware that you have an uncertainty when you are doing these calculations. Okay, then we will do this for Germany. For example, looking at the long run, going back to reunification in 1991, and as a first shot, we think of, well, calculating a long-term trend maybe just means averaging the growth rates during this time. Well, in the macro course, we did this more or less giving 3 years, and then you can do it by hand. And if I have actually also quarterly data from 1991, then of course you also can do it by hand. But then I say, please do it, and then I come in the evening back, and maybe you are done with this. Okay, I uploaded the Excel file in Moodle. Who wants to do this then in parallel with me? Just also open the file. Okay, so you see everything. That is quite good. Yeah, and also I don't know if you have already done this. If you want to show within your term paper some diagrams or so, then just mark your data, like here. I go to the end of the year, but there's no need that you definitely do this and then put in, and then you have here the diagrams, and to put it in a line, this would be then your output, and then you can start to manipulate this diagram a little bit, because you do not see that much, because here the vertical axis starts at 0, and you say, well, we are around here at 60, below maybe 110. And do you see this? Though I have to go to the right here. So right clicking there, and then maybe you can start here. Let's put in 70 and 110. Well, I think, I don't know if you have already done something like this, but I really recommend that you should start trying to do this. Okay. Oops. So since I've already done this, we don't need this. But what should we do? We should calculate the average growth rates over the last 40 years roughly. And what I want to show you is the impact of the Corona crisis. If you only naively would take the average growth rate over the last 40 years, because you can think of, well, this is quite good, and if I have 40 years, if I have quarterly data, is 4 times 4, it's about 160 data points. Corona crisis, maybe let's say 2, almost 3 years, this is then maybe roughly 10 data points out of 150. This should not have that much impact on my averaging process. And let's see what impact this has on your averaging process. So this means here average growth rate on quarterly growth rates. So QOQ just means quarter per quarter. That means at first, we have to calculate the quarter-on-quarter growth rates, and this you can easily do. This equals the index of your, the index of your data point, so 73.3. Oh, sorry, yep, definitely, sorry, to go back, yeah. So we go inside, then I start again. This equals then the data point relative to the former quarter. And so this would be then our growth factor from 1991 Q1 to Q2. Growth factor. So, well, and this we have to do for every data point. And how we can do this now, we do not have to type in it always. You just copy this formula and going down just to the end. So this are then all our growth factors, always quarter on quarter. Yep. So the formula, you can also click in here. The formula is just always the index relative to the former index. So if we click in the next, we have Q3 over Q2. So let's maybe also put in the growth rate that you see this. Because the growth rate is then nothing else as growth factor minus 1. So this minus 1. And this would be then all quarterly growth rates. And in order that this is a bit nicer, we could here do this in percentage. So Germany shrinked from the first quarter to the second quarter in 1991 by 0.5%. So, and now about this I talked in the macro course. You have to be careful that you do not average the growth rates, but you have to geometrically average the growth factor. And what we should do from Q1 to 2019, just before Corona started. And this can be done. We go down here and let's take this one in Q4. So this would be then the geometric mean. This is the formula in Excel. And from our starting point, from our end point, oops, sorry, this is wrong. Here the growth factors back to our starting point. And there we see nothing because of this. And the growth rate would be then again the average growth factor minus 1. So this is then the average growth rate for Germany from the time reunification until the outbreak of Corona. Let's also see this in percent. So we have roughly, take 2 digits, 0.33. Well, and now we are more or less done, because one easy thing is now that we again can copy this formula. But if we only copy this formula, this would then also, and step 1 quarter down, then this would mean that also our starting point would change from Q2 to Q3 at this point. And in order to fix this, we insert at this point a dollar sign before the starting point at number 5, and then this is fixed for the copying process. So in this case, now hopefully this works. We can go down, copy all this, and then let's see. This is from 5 to 119, and the second one is from 5 to 120, and the last one here is from 5 to 133. So all what we wanted, and then let's copy the numbers into our table here, reformat it to reformatting to percent. And now, well, in order to interpret these numbers, then we also have to ask, what are we general talking about when we are talking about economic growth? Well, and in general, when we are talking about economic growth, then we have to admit that mostly we are talking about annual growth rates. And therefore, we have to annualize our quarterly data now. And what we have then to do is, well, if we are increasing GDP every quarter by 0.33%, what would be then the total increase for 1 year? So if we have 4 quarters in a row increasing by the same growth rate. And do you know what we then have mathematically to do? So do I have some chalk here? Oops. Nope. So let's go here. How to annualize quarterly growth rates. Well, let's say we start from a GDP at T is 0 at 100, and then we are increasing at the first quarter, 1 plus 0.33%. Well, then this is the next point we step on. So from this amount, we also increase by 0.33%. Another time 0.33% and 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have just to take the again. Sorry. Yeah, now I can. There, I missed my rectangle. So and then oops, missed. So we can move this here. So we have to take the growth factor and rising it by the power of 4. So taking this one means then the annualized growth rate would be 1 plus our growth rate here to the power of 4. But then again, we have the growth factor, and coming from the growth factor to the growth rate means again subtracting by 1. Going down this, doing it for every period, and then we are done. I will also upload this Excel file, of course, into Moodle. Let's put in all this here. Oh, why is it not working? This way. Okay. So, and now we can have a look here. So actually, what I tell you right now is that in general, 10, 15, or before the financial crisis, roughly 4 highly developed industrial countries like Germany, with a thumb rule, more or less, we said potential output should be around 2%. And here already we see, even if we take the time until the beginning of the Corona crisis, we see here, just using the average growth rate as a first shot for potential output would mean that we say, well, they are changed, especially during these times here, since the financial crisis. Anything that we are here only at 0.3, then maybe we can say roughly the potential output could be 0.5, but this would be then a decrease of potential output of 0.5 percentage points, what is quite much. And now you see here this summertime, the Corona impact we had, and this then meant average growth down by 0.4 percentage point. And then we have still during this time here the turmoil during the Corona crisis. So we are have some rebounds effect. We are back at roughly 1.2% average growth during this time, and then maybe, this we have to skip here, but then we see in the aftermath of Corona, where we all hoped that there will be a rebound effect, and maybe we come then back to hopefully 1.3, 1.4 potential output. Then here already we see it's still only 1.3. So this would be then something like a first estimation. Well, we have the time before Corona, then we have this impact, and for us in Germany, we maybe say, well, we made it quite well through Corona. It was a really hard time, but still we have largely below 3 million people unemployed in our country. It happened not that much. But what we see already here from a really simple descriptive analysis, that we have a clue that in this time not everything has come back after the Corona crisis. So that maybe also our potential output is now really lower than before. And of course, we see it also here. The development of our index is going not straight up again, but more or less parallel. So here is then maybe for a forecast a really question mark. Where is the development of the German economy? Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And maybe. And this is now then up to you to give here some interpretation. What could be the reasons? And here, of course, we have also Ukraine. And then maybe in your outlook in the last 1 or 2 pages or so, you can also deduce some development for the future. Okay. I see only 15 minutes left. Then this picture you also, if you go to your macro lecture, you have already seen. So if you want to take a longer perspective, this I will skip because I also want to go to find some data together with you today. So you should, at the first step, only analyze the time from 2008 to the actual situation, but maybe just for another page or half a page, you can also make a longer view if you find the data for your country. This is definitely no must. So, and if you do not do this, no matter, this will be not that then your marks go down also. But then also you can have in the really long run perspective, do you find any specific events in the economic data? And this you can compare with your macro course because there I already have done it only, and you just mentioned it. I added here another crisis, the 7th one, and this would be then Ukraine. Okay. Done. Let's go to the data, and Hopefully this works now. No, so this one. So that it takes not that much time is that I linked here, interlinked just the pages where you find it at the National Statistics Office. And here you are at the time series, and yeah, then it is up to you. You look at the pages and just try, and then we find our data. Maybe you have to open 1 or 2 or 3 of these files to find it. And where is my? Here it is. Global Economics, lecture data. Oh, this I already had downloaded. Yo, then take this and then we open this one. And from this source also I had these numbers I already gave you. And here we find the GDP. Well, this is now, of course, in German. And then here you have then these data I showed you already. So since we already done this, we could maybe take this, and if we only want to have from 2008, we shortened our diagram, and let's start from 2008. And then we take this one, put it in here. And yeah, well, then you could also in a descriptive way just talk about your diagram as a first start, that you identify here the financial crisis. This flattened time period is the turmoil of the European debt crisis, when especially Greece popped up that there is that they have some problem, then also Spain, and so on. Then we had this really prospering period in Germany. There you can also argue you find something maybe similar for Switzerland. They were during this time, for example, also quite prosperous. Yeah, and then he have the Corona crisis in the end, and here we talked also already about the impact of the Ukrainian war. Okay, about growth, we already talked much about. Then let's go to inflation. Well, prices, that for prices always a good source could be the central bank, and therefore we can go to the Bundesbank, and quite often there you have then some part where especially you find the data, statistics, and what do we need? Inflation. If I click on this, then you see this is yearly data. Well, especially for the actual situations, it would be quite nice if we have a higher frequency. So we take the second one, and then you see that we have here our monthly data. Again, let's download the data. And open it. (2008) we wanted to have Since I also want to describe, I just copy it and to get directly the title, inflation. Oops, an L is missing. Yeah, you still need this. Please tell me if I'm moving too far to the right and you don't see this. And let's take this also, and then in order to see something, we again manipulate the vertical axis. So maybe from 80 to 120 would be a nicer difference. 80 to 120. What else do we need? This is quite important. Since this is an index, then we have to know where have we fixed this index. And here you find the information that 2020 is equal to 100. So in this case, here you can change the title of the axis, and this means then 2020 equals 100. And this is also a thing you should show me in your term paper. When you are showing diagrams, that they are fully described what you are showing. Because otherwise I have, yeah, what should I do then? This is also always describing the axis. Well, if you have the time axis, then it's clear that it is time. But what is written down on the vertical axis? There, just show it to me. So, and then, yeah, we see for Germany that for a long time, more or less, it is not that interesting. But yeah, this is now the index development. And again, we can ask ourselves, what is maybe more interesting for us? When we talk about inflation, and inflation is not the index itself, what we want to look at is again the growth rate of these index. But when we talk about inflation, when you read in the media that inflation actually in Germany is 6.1%, what we then mean is we compare the index today, or the last data point is August, not September, because we are still in September. So what we have, what was written down in the media was the change of the index of August 23 compared to August 22. Well, and this we then also need from our data. Oh, yep, sorry, thank you. So then, since we start at 2008, for this, yeah, we have then, when we want to start with the inflation, so this is then not inflation, sondern this is the index. And if we want to have inflation, then for 2008, the first month, we have to compare with January in 2007. So what we have already done for GDP, this would be then the index 2008 over index 2007. Growth factor minus 1 is growth rate. So let's do again inflation. So in 2008 we had an inflation rate of 2.8%, and going back until the end, and taking now all this data for a diagram. So this is now the index and the inflation rate together. While the index is around 100, then we just skip the data for the inflation index, and then this is our inflation rate, and this is maybe then more commonly known to you when you see this price development in the media. So this is then the inflation rate in Germany. Well, and then we can here really see, maybe what you also can do then is describing this for your country when you are analyzing it and you analyzing the or reading about the monetary policy. Then many countries have specific aim in monetary policy. And if we go to the European Central Bank, what is the main aim of the European Central Bank? Do you remember? This is also the reason why we are starting to increase interest rates and going further. 2%, symmetrically 2%. Should it be? Well, right now it's much higher, so we would be happy if we would have 3%, but the main aim is 2%, and maybe then you also can put in this reference point. This could be, I think for UK it is a corridor between 2 and 3, or it is 3%, I don't know. And then you can start to interpret your data maybe relative to this reference point. Where should your country be? And then actually we see here in the financial prices, prices were going down. Well, and then you can explain it. Well, this is not that surprising. We had a really large drop in demand. Okay, when you have your supply and demand picture in general, and you shift back the demand, then of course you should not be surprised that the prices are falling. So, and then you roughly see we are always here below, mostly below 2%. And this was always then, this was all the same for the most European countries. And therefore, in this time, the European Central Bank really tried to push prices. And this was then the reason for all the massive programs to feed in money into the market, that here's more money and we start to demand and increase prices, because we were just below the aim. We just wanted to have higher prices. Well, then it is here our drop down during Corona crisis. Well, during this time, we more or less weren't allowed to buy anything except at Amazon from at home. Therefore, also it is not very surprising that prices went down, but then it started here, and this is definitely then for one reason, Ukraine, but also for Germany. we actually have also to admit that there was that much money via the ECB in the market, and now it was possible again, and this money wanted to buy, so to speak, something. And even we were more or less forced to save our money. The savings rate or the savings quota in Germany was during the last 30 years mostly more or less flat at 9.5, 10%. And during Corona time, during these 2 years, we were more or less forced to save more, and the savings quota went up to 16, 17%. And also this money, we were again allowed to buy something. So we started really. And this again then moved back the demand curve. So we have two main reasons, not only Ukraine, but also the monetary policy we had here during 10 years and this argumentation from the Corona crisis that we should not be very surprised, and additionally Ukraine, that prices really exploded. Well, and maybe you have some interpretation how far or how fast the prices will come back. Yeah, then I think 4 or 5 other parameters. Unemployment I want to talk about with you, ex and imports development in Germany. Exchange rate, there we look at the, of course, the euro exchange rate. You should then look at your exchange rates in your country, interest rates, of course, what else? And key interest rates, this is then monetary policy. Maybe you know that I have a specific background in monetary policy, so I have always to talk about monetary policy. You have not to use also this weight on monetary policy as me. Look at your country if it's interesting or not. And the last one was government debt. Yeah, and this we will do then together at Monday. And then I hope that you have an idea what you can do and how you can start with your analysis of your country. Okay, then thank you for very much for today. Has anybody entered today? No, but we see.